Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. As you are probably aware, the company GOG.com sponsors our esports team, and I produced some content for them as a direct result of that. They asked me if I would like to put together a sale by picking various titles from various genres, and they would then see if they could get discounts on them, and I thought that was a pretty cool idea. I mean, other YouTubers have done that before with different sites, so I thought, why not? So I came up with a list of things, and they asked the publishers and developers, and they managed to get some of them back. So what we've got is a GOG sale, which is based purely on my picks. I'd like to do a quick run-through of all of the games that are on this particular sale, and tell you briefly why I put them there. You can find all of these games over at GOG.com. So without further ado, let's kick it off with DUSTFORCE, 75% off. The reason I put this one there is that while I'm not a fan of the genre, I think this is one of the best examples of precision platformers on PC. It's an elegant but difficult little game about clearing up leaves as fast as is humanly possible. It also has a rather fantastic in-game replay system which allows you to watch other people do things so that you can perfect your runs. Lots of content available for this one, and it's got a level editor as well, which means there's plenty of user-created content for it. Next one is Duke Nukem 3D. I don't think I need to explain why this is on the list. Duke Nukem is a classic. It's got some of the best FPS level design of all time. Plenty of secrets to find, maze-like environments, an awful lot of things to discover. I know a lot of people like to look back on this game and claim that it's puerile, and it is, but I think that just calling it that unfairly represents just how intelligent it is in terms of level design. Great gunplay and weapon variety on this one as well. Moving on to Nexus the Jupiter Incident, 75% off. So this was what was going to be Imperium Galactica 3. It was repurposed into a tactical fleet sim. And this is a game for those with patience. It looks incredibly good, considering that it came out over a decade ago, and I really enjoy this. It's almost like playing EVE without all the spreadsheets. You control a fleet of ships in tactical space combat and go through numerous missions, upgrading and customizing your ships. Certainly a slow-paced and fairly difficult game, but very much worth your time if you're willing to be patient. UNMECHANICAL, 75% off. This is an adorable little... I wouldn't even necessarily call it a puzzle platformer, considering you can fly, but it is a side-scrolling puzzle game. Its launch price was arguably a little bit high, but at 75% off, it's absolutely worthy of your time if you're interested in doing little puzzles with a cute flying robot. The King's Bounty franchise, 75% off. This is what would happen if you took Heroes of Might and Magic, removed most of the kingdom-building elements, and focused it on one hero and their development. You romp around a fantasy world, building up your army and engaging in turn-based battles, which are quite similar to the Might and Magic series. Armored Princess also allows you to own an adorable pet dragon which incinerates people, which as far as I'm concerned is a selling point. Perimeter, 70% off. Not the best strategy game, but I've listed it here because it's really unique in a lot of the things that it does. For instance, you are able to establish a perimeter force field, which requires power, and is necessary for holding off the wave after wave of alien insects coming to destroy you. It also has a very interesting unit system in which units will morph together to form different units. Like I said, not the best RTS, but a really unique one, and you can't really find too many experiences like that. GIANA Sisters plus the DLC, 75% off. Really solid, colorful, retro-inspired platformer where you switch between two characters that have different abilities. The cool thing about it is when you switch between those characters, the environments change and the music changes as well. The music, by the way, is done by Machine Eye Supremacy, who happen to be one of my favorite bands. Love Trousers, 75% off. I will never stop calling this Love Trousers, and there's no way you can get away from that. It is a rather awesome 2D dogfighting game by Vlambeer. It reminds me very much of things like Time Pilot, but you were able to customize your airplane by putting together different parts. You can even have things like the Gungeon, which is an engine that fires bullets in order to propel the aircraft around the place. It's pretty much play enough to unlock new parts and do the score attack kind of game, but I really enjoyed its retro-inspired dogfighting. Stalker, Call of Pripyat, 70% off. Now, if you enjoy perhaps the elements of survival games, but you're more interested in a solid first-person shooter, that's what Call of Pripyat is. It's an FPS with some survival and RPG elements in which you must roam the wastelands of the Chernobyl exclusion zone and deal with all manner of things like radioactive hazards and mutant creatures trying to kill you, as well as, of course, bandits, mercenaries, the army, and all manner of different things. This game has a great deal of depth. It's also very challenging with a reasonable learning curve, and if you're really looking to test your mettle, then you may wish to download the Misery mod. Risk of Rain, 75% off. This is a rather neat side-scrolling roguelite shooter platformer thingy in which you play various classes attempting to make your way through a very hostile world indeed. And it often comes down to the speed at which you can do this, because the slower you go, the more difficult the game actually gets. It's very challenging, and this game has a standout soundtrack and happens to have a reasonable combat system behind it, which quite a few roguelite games fail to do. So this is one of those rare roguelites that I really enjoyed, and I'd highly recommend if you're looking for a challenge. Lots of replayability on this one too when it comes to item unlocks and classes. Mount and Blade Warband, 70% off. This is the granddaddy as far as I'm concerned when it comes to medieval sandboxes, and this is all about riding around the country trying to build up an army and build reputation with various lords, and then of course go to war with them in all manner of different things. All of the battles are done from a third or first person perspective, and while the combat engine is utilitarian, I would say, in nature, and it's not the best looking game, it has an incredible modding scene and a ridiculous amount of gameplay. So I would absolutely recommend you try it if you like the idea of being let loose in a medieval-inspired world in order to make your fortune and battle for glory. Act of War Gold, 50% off. Now, I mentioned that this one was overlooked at the time, and there is a spiritual successor on the way out, but I think Act of War Gold is well worth playing through if you like those really cheesy green screen campaigns. It reminds me of a dodgy Tom Clancy novel, but the RTS gameplay is really interesting and features a number of gameplay innovations, including the ability to capture down soldiers and intern them in a prison camp in order to make money, and the ability to summon in mercenary hero units that drain your economy over time, but can also be absolutely key to winning battles. This game absolutely still holds up to this day if you happen to be an RTS fan. It actually reminds me a little bit of Command & Conquer Generals in a way. Chronicles of Riddick, 66% off. So this is the best movie tie-in game ever as far as I'm concerned, and it's a first-person shooter with some melee and stealth elements in which, of course, you play the titular Riddick and you attempt to escape from various high-tech space prisons. It's kind of great. Also, it's voiced by Vin Diesel, so if you're a fan of gravelly-voiced, no-emotion voice acting, which I absolutely am, then this should be right up your alley. Master of Magic, 66% off. This one is getting on in years, but it really is one of the granddaddies when it comes to 4X, and it's worth playing simply on that basis. It's an extremely in-depth fantasy 4X with a turn-based system, and it was developed by the legendary Microprose, and it's really quite unfortunate that we haven't had a proper sequel to this. PSYCHONAUTS, 75% off. Not usually a big fan of these kind of platform games, the third-person 3D platformers, but you've got to give this one props for sheer creativity when it comes to the storyline and the ridiculous worlds that it happens to put on display here. I mean, this is the game that, in my opinion, really made Double Fine a household name, and it's still really, really good to this day. One thing I will say, you're gonna hate the meat circus. Just be aware of that. Wasteland 2, 50% off. Full disclosure, I backed this one on Kickstarter, and there's actually an NPC in the game with my name, which you can gun down with a plasma rifle if you so desire, and I would highly recommend that you do so. This is a lengthy and very in-depth classic CRPG in the style, of course, of the old Fallout games and the original Wasteland. A lot of unique features here, including the ability to type words into the dialogue engine to actually unlock hidden dialogue options. Uses a turn-based combat engine and is very much a post-apocalyptic CRPG in the true sense of the word. Age of Wonders 3, 66% off. You can also get the DLC at a discount, as well as Age of Wonders Shadow Magic, which is one of the older games, which is still very good to this day. Age of Wonders 3 is a rather fantastic 4X that emphasizes tactical turn-based combat and also the use of magic to further your goals. What's really interesting about this is that there are a large number of combinations of different classes and races that you can put into play, and as a result, there's quite a lot of replayability. There's also a huge number of neutral units, which include evil penguins. Yes, evil aligned penguins. I cannot honestly see why you'd need anything more than that. VOLGAR the Viking, 75% off. If you want to hate yourself, this is great. So, this is an old-school action platformer, which reminds me very much of Ghosts and Goblins. It was heavily inspired by the game Rastan, and this is really, really challenging. If that's your thing, then this one is incredibly well designed. So if you're looking to challenge yourself, then give VOLGAR a shot, but don't say I didn't warn you. Caesar 3, Pharaoh, and Zeus and Poseidon, all 70% off. These are the Impressions games. I talked a little bit about this in my video about Lethus Path of Progress. This is the series that inspired that game, and they're all set in different historical time periods. My personal favorite is probably Zeus, because it has this great mythological element where gods will actually come down into your city and have effects, and you'll also have to deal with the rampaging mythological beasties. So it's got a nice little spin to it. Caesar, of course, is based in Rome, and Pharaoh is based in ancient Egypt. They do have a couple of problems, as I mentioned in Lethus. They're very much built around the idea that resource walkers have to keep your city from downgrading, but once you get the hang of that, you'll find a very compelling city builder. Dreamfall 1 and 2, 60% off. Absolutely phenomenal narratively focused adventure games. If you like fantastical worlds and well-developed characters, then these games have those in spades. I wouldn't necessarily say that the combat and stealth aspects have aged all that well, but it does have an absolutely phenomenal story and really cool places to explore. Don't Starve plus the DLC, 66% off. This is one of the only survival games that I can say that I've actually enjoyed, and it also is the only finished survival game, and the game challenges you to literally not starve. You start off with basically nothing, you go into the world and you try and build things out of the stuff that you find, and there's a really interesting Lovecraftian horror element to it with the insanity meter that's well worth playing. The new DLC also allows you to play with a friend, which makes the game a lot more tolerable, I have to say. And last but by no means least, we've got Pillars of Eternity, 33% off, the recent release, which is very much in the vein of Planescape Torment. This is a huge CRPG in the classic style. Avoid if you don't like reading, because there's a lot of that, but talk about great character development, talk about excellent story, and talk about a fairly grim adult world as well, because you've got all of that. There's a huge amount of content here. If you like things like Baldur's Gate, if you like things like Icewind Dale, Neverwinter Nights, Planescape Torment, this game should be right up your alley. It's great that this sort of thing can even exist in this day and age. I'm very happy that it does. Alright folks, there you go. That's a roundup of the games that are available in the TotalBiscuit Pick sale over on GOG.com. There might be a couple of extra ones in there if it happens that some publishers and developers get back to us really, really late. But one way or the other, you can go and pick those up DRM free right now at GOG.com, and everything that's on that list, well, I've just given you the reasons why I put it there. My name's been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.